Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando.
For those who seek knowledge, untold power awaits. Beyond the gates, a shattered reflection holds the key to unlocking your full potential. Embrace the shadow, and all shall tremble before your might.
Hello everyone, welcome to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Andy with you here today for a special episode with Josh. How's it going, man?
Doing great. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm super excited. We got that nice kit from LSS, which we showed from everybody, and we are here without really any further ado to announce what I think is a pretty cool spoiler. Obviously, I'm biased, but let's get right into this. So, Hexagore, the Death Hydra, because the Shadow Brute gets their own weapon. Once per turn for 2 attack. Once per turn action for 2 attack. Whenever you attack with Hexagore, it deals damage to you equal to 6 minus the number of cards with Blood Debt in your banished zone. There's a lot going on here, especially if you haven't been keeping up with the spoilers over the last 48 to 30 or 48 to 72 hours. So this is awesome because Josh is a Brute player, has been for a while. So what do we think, buddy?
It's both scary and fascinating. I think we're seeing a lot of risk and reward mechanics for Brute with Blood Debt itself. Seems to be, you get the advantage of being able to play these cards from your banished zone, but they do damage to you. And then, of course, the new Brute Hero's ability to turn that off to help mitigate some of that. Has a lot of lines of strategy in play. And then now with this weapon, working off of that mechanic both ways, both with the hero and Blood Debt cards directly, it'll be interesting to see how you manage your health, especially in like a Blitz format. Is this viable in Blitz? Is it mainly something you're only going to want to play in Constructed where you have hit points you can burn? It'd be interesting to deck look out to where you're getting to be able to swing for 6 without hurting yourself in the process.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, let's, again, maybe not everybody, I think most everybody's on top of the spoilers, but let's walk people through, what is Blood Debt? How does it really work functionally?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen everything yet, but the Blood Debt cards we've seen so far, if they're in your banished zone, they do a hit point of damage to you at the end phase. So we've seen a few cards where the cost of playing them banishes cards from your graveyard, and once they're in your graveyard, in your banished zone is when they incur a Blood Debt. So there's mechanics for getting cards from your discard into banish, and if cards with Blood Debt are in your banish zone, you take damage for them being there. But then we've seen that there are cards that can be played once they're in your banish zone, so there are ways to get them back out again. So it just seems like it's almost like a new resource mechanic for Brute
for Shadow yeah,
in general, to be able to risk a little bit of health to be able to pull out another card again. It's just really fascinating to see what other cards are going to come into play and how we're going to figure out how the mechanic works and how to get it to work.
Yeah, so the card I've been showing up is Endless Maw, and it defines Blood Debt there at the bottom. But as an additional cost to play it, banish 3 random cards from your graveyard, and if a card was 6 or more, which, if you're playing Brute should be manageable, is banished this way.
Right.
Endless Maw gains +3. so that's one example. There's been a couple other spoiled, and I'm sure by the time we shoot this and get it edited, there will probably be more. But fundamentally, then putting that in context of Hexagore, you are dealing yourself 6 damage or less, but then that card being in your zone would deal you that damage anyway. So it's a push, unless you are running the hero to which Josh was talking about earlier. So we have Olivia Shadowborn Abomination, or her corresponding young hero. If a card with 6 or more attack has been put into your banished zone this turn, cards you own lose blood debt during the end phase. So, I mean, just the easy combo there is that if you manage to get rid of a 6, you can somehow maybe swing with your hammer, although that'll be, your flail. It's a flail. So it'll be interesting to see if you can do that and swing with your flail at the same time. But you as a brute player, granted everything's getting shaken up, but put that into context for me. How are we going to be able to pull that off?
I think without seeing anything, I don't think I've seen anything with Go Again for the Shadow yet. I think you're having to rely on the Brute Pants to pull off the bigger combos where you can Brute Pants, pitch a 3, endless, or I guess you couldn't start with Endless Maw, but you could start with Awakening Bellows to try to discard a card. Blood Rush Bellows to discard a card, pitch to do Endless Maul, and then if you have an extra action, then you can do like swing the flail without incurring. It seems like a lot of resources right now to try to figure out how exactly you could do to do the combos with the cards we know about with normal brute, because there is if you're playing a card that has a discard, often you've had to pitch, play a card, discard, and you only have 1 card left, so I think you're having to play from Arsenal to get something that goes off. Or we've seen cards that once they're in your discard or in your banish zone, where you're getting the cards to do these bigger combos.
Yeah, so one of the ones we've seen thus far is Tome of Torment, showing it now. You may play Tome of Torment from your banish zone. It's a 0 cost, draw a card, and it has blood debt. So it's doing a lot of what you want it to do. It's a shadow action, so it's a generic shadow action basically then. So pseudo generic would be playable with Olivia, and that's one start. Cards like that, there very well may be more that we see, but I think that fits right in line with what you were trying to say or trying to outline.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect point. That's a card where, with extra actions from the pants, you can get the card draw that you need that allows you to pay for and discard cards to get the combos off with banishing cards or putting them in your blood zone or playing from your blood zone or just being able to do a big attack action and then swing at the end of it.
Yeah, and again, we're putting everything in context of the very small sliver of cards we've seen at this point. Although, Josh and I waited as long as we could to shoot this, to have it ready. So, we've seen a fair amount of the Shadow Brute and Brute cards so far, but, I'm scrolling through the page as we do this, pulling the images up, and there's a fair amount left to go.
Oh, yeah.
So, plus, more Shadow generics, which I assume only the Shadow stuff will interact with blood debt, but maybe not. I don't know. So okay. So then the big question as a brute player is, how do you work her into? Well, maybe you don't work her into the current strategy, but how do you work her into your brute rotation? Is it a completely different play style, or what are you thinking?
Actually, the way I've been playing Brute has kind of been sort of a go wide and then swing at the end sort of thing, and I think that build works with this pretty well, because if you're not counting on some of the bigger combo attacks that deal with banishing cards from your graveyard or discarding a lot of cards, you can manage a lot of, I can get a little bit of cards in my blood debt, but my goal is always to hit you with something with Go Again and then swing at the end of it. And as long as you're getting your discards with the buffs that discard, um, then or you're playing something like Swing Fist Think Later, which has a discard in it and has Go Again. I think it would actually be a lot easier to do kind of a small attack, hopefully another small attack, and then a big swing with the flail. And you're getting opportunities to get that one discard. And obviously, you're not getting the Intimidate trigger like you were normally hoping for with discards with Rhinar. But if you're getting the discard mechanic and it saves you 6 health and allows you to swing 2 for 6 at the end of a go wide kind of control brute, I think that's how you would probably want to build her. It doesn't have to be super aggressive. It doesn't have to be all the new awesome cards. Just ones that are going to get cards into your banish zone to qualify for the 6 that you want. And then don't even bother probably playing those out of there. If you can swing your club turn every turn through a discard, then you're getting the benefit of having the cards there in a pinch, but mainly just trying to be consistent with the damage of a front attack and then flail on the back.
Yeah. I mean, we do have to be careful, though, right? Because on her, you have to... It's not discard, right? It's not like a normal brute thing where you have to discard it. You have to move it from your discard to your banished. Or I guess she just says put in your banished zone. But so far, I think the majority of the mechanics are moving from your discard to banished. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, we keep saying we'll have to see. I think she's going to be very hard to figure out the right math on her. You asked earlier or mentioned earlier that whether she was constructed or blitz. I can't see playing the flail and blitz. But I don't know. Maybe she has like an OTK, like a round 2 OTK combo, something that she can do, right? Maybe
Yeah, and I realize
possible.
now I was misremembering how her ability worked. I was thinking it was just discarding a 6, but if it is banished, then you are meeting those newer cards that the cost of play is banishing cards.
Yeah, because so far the only one, she is banished, and so far the only ones we've seen that do that are the Shadow Brute cards, right? Whereas your normal Brute cards, like you were talking about with your previous Go Wide, those feature discard, which is great. Yeah, very interesting. But man, she can hit like a truck. If she hits, she can hit like a truck, right? So some of these cards, I mean, we already saw Endless Maw, bring it up again, but Endless Maw is 3 for 9. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah. I mean, pretty similar to Alpha Rampage. Is basically a poor man's Alpha Rampage without being a specialization. Getting to bring in a card that's 3 for 9. You don't get the Intimidate, but it's a pretty similar card. Blocks for 3. I mean, that's probably one of... It's not necessarily important, but I love the art on this card.
Yeah, so...
But to be able to block for 3, cost 3, hit for 6, and it's got a way to pump it to 9, like, that's a pretty hefty attack.
Yeah, this is... I mean, and this is just a rare, by the way, right? So there's a 3, a 2, and a 1 pitch, versions of it. So it'd be, 654, I believe. Yeah, it's 654. So that does put you in an interesting position from a resource generation standpoint, because we see that a lot where Brute runs into money issues trying to play the 6s, just with where a lot of their cards fall. But we did get, what was the other one we got here that I thought, oh yeah, Pulping. This card's pretty cool too, but it again runs into that same issue where it's a 654. So Pulping is draw a card, discard a random card. If a card with 6 or more attacks, discard this way, Pulping gains Dominate. And then while Pulping is defended by less than 2 non-equipments, it has Go Again. This card is pretty cool, also a rare.
Yeah, and I like that it's a general Brute action, so we'll see this in all manner of Brute.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of playability. It's got if you proceed it with the Barraging Beatdown to where you're getting the Intimidates, to where you're kind of forcing the Go Again, that just feeds into a Go Wide, Brute control where you're just doing hefty attacks consistently that they have to deal with.
Yeah, well, and I mean the part that struck me is the fact that it's not a standard brute card that from the previous block, quote unquote, where you had to discard a card from your hand. This feeds your hand, so you could potentially play this with 2 cards in hand, 2 for your pitch, and then to play this, and it would actually feed itself. Now you don't necessarily have control.
And that's the other great thing about that is the discard is dependent on, or gaining dominate is dependent on what is discarded, but the go again is only dependent on what they block with. So even if you miss the dominate trigger, you still have the possibility of forcing them to overblock just to prevent you from getting go again.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, I think we all automatically put this in context of Rhinar, but
right.
I'm not sure. I mean, this one could, in theory, feed into the flail, but that's 4 resources. So, yeah, I don't know. So,
I think the other one that actually I think kind of feeds into the ability that I think would work with the flail is the Shadow of Blasphemy.
Let me pull that guy up.
Draw a card, then discard a random card. If a card with 6 or more attack is discarded in this way, search your deck for a card with blood debt, banish it, then shuffle your deck. You basically get to tutor something that quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's actually not up in the gallery yet, so I'll have to pull that one.
And it's red 2 cost for 6. So again, we're kind of looking at things costing 4 for her for a turn. But since you're not losing cards out of hand with the discard mechanic necessarily, you get to not only attack, the drawing and the potential ban card is going to happen regardless of what whether the attack hits or anything else. It's just an extra add-on thing, and that's what I think is kind of interesting, is some of these mechanics are going to happen regardless of. It's not a on-hit effect or anything else. It's just something else has the potential to happen depending on what gets discarded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, the disclaimer of all of the chat that we're having, of course, is, like any spoiler season, is we're trying to put this into context of what little pieces we have, right, and trying to make sense of it. And there's an excellent chance that
and being the
I was just going to excellent chance that by Friday we're dead wrong, right? So
and that's it's early and have the opportunity to present this early on, but it also means we have the least amount of information about how it could potentially work with what we're going to be seeing down the line. If we were the next to last day or the last day, obviously we'd have a lot more information to go off of. But
yeah, so Josh and I were talking before, and we've seen a lot of brute stuff. I think the first day we saw the general light dark thing, but it's been mostly brute stuff this week, and I mean we obviously got a super treat being able to show the weapon. One thing that's interesting, though, is the rarity on the weapon, right? It's a Majestic, which implies to me that there'll be a token weapon. But maybe it's the club. I don't know. I mean, it could be.
Actually, that's a fair point. That's interesting. What kind of token weapon there would be if this is not occupying one of their slots? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be just a generic. Maybe it's just a generic brute weapon, which there's implications there, too. Versus being, a token shadow brute weapon. But I don't know. She's got some claw thingies
point. Are they going to redo or issue the Romping Club? Or I think it'd be exciting, obviously, if it was something new.
I think I'd hope it would be, but yeah, that was what I thought was interesting, was it being a Majestic means that there's, I would think, something else coming. But
I think there's an interesting conversation so far with the legendaries we've seen are not equipment based, and I think we're used to seeing a lot of the legendary slots being equipments, but we're seeing legendary cards, deck cards, which is, it's going to be interesting. Are there going to be legendary equipments? If they are they going to be harder to find because there's more legendaries that don't fit the model of hitting an equipment slot? I think some people were hoping for like a legendary boot. I think Jake mentioned that in our last cast. So is that something that we can expect, or legendaries that are going to be deck cards going to be the common or more common going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's the two we've seen so far, which are Doomsday and Eclipse. Those are the ones you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those will be, yeah, I don't know. I mean, so we know there's 4. So, I mean, that should fit. Even there could still be equipment at this point, right? 4 pieces of equipment. Or there could be 5 pieces of equipment, right? I believe.
Right. But I'm just imagining if we're seeing 2 legendary shadows, that there's going to be 2 legendary.
Oh, I follow.
And does that make room for a legendary equipment?
I mean, that does make sense. I follow. That does make sense. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And that also leads to kind of speculate. If we're used to seeing classes have a legendary equipment that goes with their class, if there is no legendary equipment in this set, or if there's one that's a legendary generic, does that mean we're not going to see any new classes? We're just going to see light and shadow of existing classes like we're seeing with group.
Yeah, we could speculate. I don't know. We could that is interesting. Well, so I mean, that was another question I was going to ask you here is, do we think that this, I think that I've been, reading responses and stuff like we all have on these spoilers, and everybody seems to be in this mindset that, Shadow and Dark, we know that it's not backwards applicable to the existing heroes, but everyone seems to have this attitude or this thought that it's here to stay. And I mean, for all we know, it could be just in this set, right? Just applicable to these heroes, or following logic, maybe the next set and then some supplemental set or whatever it may be. But I don't necessarily know that we will always have the shadow light mechanic be in every set that's ever printed, right?
Yeah, I'm starting to think not. Mainly because of the article that came out with James White was talking about how there's talents for each region. So I'm imagining that this is the light and shadow region play off of each other, and then the next set we'll see 2 more talents that have nothing to do with light and shadow. And then so on and so forth. And then probably will get a supplemental set that has nothing but talent cards in it or something like that, and a few generics to try to refresh some of the older things that have been out for a while. I imagine that's probably how it's going to go. So I think that this probably is our first and last look at Shadow and Light cards.
Yeah, well, or they may have like you said, with a supplemental, there may be like a Crucible style. But I mean, so far, and again, it's way early, but we've seen, I think, a grand total of 0 Arcane, right? Now, there's a lot of speculation over there being a wizard, so I've heard, but that's not confirmed. So I don't know. We'll have to see on that. But I haven't seen, as of yet, there hasn't been any Arcane-related stuff. But then again, it's been mostly Brute stuff. So
yeah, I think that's one thing that we were trying to speculate about. Oh, there's going to be I think a lot of us anticipated some kind of necromantic class. But Shadow, its mechanic, whatever classes have that talent, kind of fit that mold. And same thing where I think a lot of people are expecting if we're going to have light, that means there's going to be a cleric. Well, light itself, the talent, is what you would expect from a cleric. It's going to have some kind of healing properties, something that works with the soul and not with the banished zone. So we're not getting classes like we thought we would that would have new mechanics. The mechanics are the talents themselves that are enhancing previous classes, which I actually think is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, very, very, very cool. So what are you thinking? So what have we heard? Any other rumors and stuff we've heard out there? I know FabDB, they posted that they have a range. I think it was something that's going to make Ranger players happy. So I think that's...
Yeah, I was hoping that we're going to get some kind of Divine Hunter Ranger thing. Other people who know a little bit more about the lore have mentioned something about a nature ranger that's on the... Poison the Tips.
Mm-hmm.
That character on that card being a light ranger or potentially a light talented ranger, which I think would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, again, I'm not huge on the lore either, but I know Azalea is. I mean, she's pretty dark, right? She's like a secret assassin or whatever. So, but I mean, I guess they could go the other way with that.
Yeah, and that's where I think if there is a light ranger, it would kind of make sense because we already have kind of a dark one, even though there's no talent involved, and we'll get to see some new cards that are specific to the light ranger, but there's going to be generic ranger cards that will also benefit, which I think would be two birds with one stone sort of thing. Give her some support, introduce a new ranger character, a new mechanics in the light realm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean the question I asked in terms of do you think we'll see it is also, you and I were talking on Discord last night, and one of the concern, I mean, it's not concerning in a negative way, right? But one of the concerns coming out of seeing the light dark, talents, I guess they're calling it, right, is that because it's not backwards applicable, it's kind of an indirect creep, right? Because the light ranger, right? Let's say the light ranger comes out. Well, he can use rapid fire and endless arrow, but Azalea can't use any of the new light affiliated stuff. And the same for the brutes that we saw, right? I mean, we had to specifically have two different conversations about Rhinar and Levia. So
right.
I don't know if that's direct creep, and if it goes away, then I don't think it matters. Yeah, and then I think that led into our conversation last night about retiring heroes, right, and all that. But
well, that's another thing. I think that the conversation might have been different if we didn't already know that there was a young version and an adult version of the new hero. Because if she would have only been in, then that means Blitz has its own silo, effectively, of cards that are in play, and it wouldn't necessarily include new heroes or vice versa. If she had just been a hero,
they have to do young for draft though, to support the draft.
Right. Well, I guess that's a better point. If she would have been young only, then we would know it was Blitz only, and not applicable to what is considered, I guess, the truest form of the game, Classic Constructed.
Mm-hmm.
But since we know that there's both, obviously that's not the conversation. But it'll be interesting to see if that holds true. If it's going to be open for both, then I think we do have to worry about your backwards creep kind of situation where they're having to keep track of interactions that maybe they hadn't play tested or considered.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm hoping that there's enough cool stuff for whether they call them the legacy heroes, to where not only are they able to still be fun to play, you don't feel like you're missing out by not having talent cards.
Yeah, I mean they're going to keep getting stuff, so they're not dead. I do have to say I don't like the term legacy heroes because, well, I mean we're in a non-rotating game, so like if it's a non-rotating game, is anything legacy? You know what I mean? Like,
right?
Because the word legacy implies the past, right? It implies like the dead past. When
I saw that label, I thought the same exact thing.
Yeah, I mean it's not a big deal. Like, if that's the biggest problem we have, then I can deal with that. It's just I just thought that was kind of odd because that's basically their way of saying, well, these are the old ones and we've moved on. And
these were your starter heroes to get you into the game, but now we're gonna blow your mind with all this new stuff.
Yeah, wait for it. Warrior 4 swings a turn. Like,
no.
So.
Yeah, I will say that that's one thing I've heard people speculating. If we're not going to get new classes, what are the classes we're going to see? Obviously, we already know Brute. Ranger has kind of been mentioned specifically. I've heard rumors about Wizard, and I've heard Warrior. So it could be that we're going to see kind of 2 from Welcome to Wrathe, 2 from Arcane Rising, with a new twist on it.
I can't see us, and again, famous last words, right? But I can't see us not getting a Warrior. Like with some of the art we've seen and stuff, like I just don't. It's just too easy, like because that kind of fits the cleric spot anyway, like you said. So like having a light warrior seems like a slam dunk to me, but I don't know. Maybe it could be. I think it's got to be a light warrior. What would be interesting is a light wizard.
I kind of feel like Dorinthea, even though she doesn't have a talent, is kind of already has all the symbolism of a light warrior, So do they double down on that with a new character, or do they have a dark warrior to kind of, same way with Azalea. Azalea is dark. Having another shadow ranger doesn't really add anything to the flow. I don't know if there's new mechanics, but if you have a kind of ranger without a talent and then a light themed ranger with the talent, it would kind of have that light and dark within the same class, even though obviously the mechanics are not the same.
Yeah. You know, one thing just occurred to me. We have been making the assumption, which is probably false, that all shadow stuff is going to have blood debt. And perhaps, and in fact, I think it's actually likely that blood debt is specifically the shadow brute mechanic. And while shadow probably, I mean, shadow without a doubt, based on the generic shadow cards we've seen, do deal with the Banished Zone. So I think that's clear. But there aren't blood debt on the generic cards, right? It's only on the brute.
Well, actually, like the first one they spoiled, Eclipse, the legendary, it's shadow instant. It's not brute, and it mentions blood debt.
Oh, it does. It does. You're right. Or are you talking Dooms? Oh, yeah, they both mention blood debt. Okay, so maybe, okay, I take that back then. So maybe blood debt is a universal shadow mechanic. Okay. So, okay, and then they're applying the shadow mechanic to discarding cards that are greater than 6 to brute. Okay, fair enough.
And that's actually an interesting, if there is a light ranger, and I know we don't know exactly how soul works because I think we've only seen 2 cards that even mention it, about it being cards that go under the hero. But imagine a light ranger being able to play cards from the soul would almost be like a secondary arsenal for them and give a light ranger a lot more tools to play with. That might be a lot of fun.
Yeah, could actually do a wide ranger. Yeah, I don't know. So, I'll hit you with this, and then we can chat and get out of here and call it a day. But so right now, from what we can tell, very early, it looks like light basically buys you access to more cards, while shadow basically uses the cards you've gotten rid of to pump your attacks. Isn't there a potential disparity there in how this game works with cards?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of discussion, and there's so many spoiler chats. I don't know who have had the conversation with or not, but it did seem to be if there's going to be ways to draw cards for light, and dark or shadow takes damage from the cards that they can access from Banished, that's not only a card advantage for light, it's also a health detriment to shadow that we assume is balanced, because I'm sure it's been play tested, but the disparity seems like that might be a little too much, because we already know how powerful card advantage is just in the heroes we play today. And then you add in another mechanic that provides for a card advantage, and then the opposing side having to worry about taking damage from their shadow card or their blood debt card sitting in their Banished Zone. It'll be interesting to see how that balances out, how it interacts. Obviously, they probably put a lot of thought into it, and those are reasons why we're seeing a lot of big attack cards for both Shadow and Shadow Brute. Maybe Light won't have as much access to super amazing attack cards, except for that one Celestial
I was going to say, insane. Celestial Cataclysm looks pretty good. So this is it's a 2-pitch, by the way. 2-pitch, 0 for 7, defends 3. As an additional cost to play this, banish 3 cards from your hero's soul. Okay, so you have to have your soul full up. I think that's the talk, is that it has a max of 3, I think. And then go again. So... and
go.
Yeah, and go, just a little go again. No big NBD there. This looks like it's also the same dude from Easter Egg, which is pretty funny, but it's at least similar art to Easter Egg. But this card is freaking phenomenal. So I don't know how hard it's gonna. I mean, I think that's the question: is like, how hard is it to get 3 cards into your soul? I don't know, right? But looks pretty good on paper.
Yeah, that card looks insane. And that's kind of another thing. Like that's the one big, super awesome light card we've seen, and it's like, wait, they're going to have card advantage. We're taking, I say we, brute players I'm obviously going to be playing this hero right out of the box as soon as possible. I'm going to be taking damage to get cards in my banish zone, and you're going to have card advantage, and then you can hit me with this super amazing attack that hits for 7 with Go again. It seems like that's a little strong to overcome, but we don't makes it. We're still speculating.
Yeah, it's
we'll see. I'm sure there's
early.
balancing mechanics we haven't considered or seen yet, but it'll be interesting to see how that they play off of each other.
Yeah, let's just keep our fingers crossed that the next. I mean, again, so if they're doing brute, hopefully they'll do somebody next week, and let's hope that somebody next week is a light. Because if they give us both the shadow back to back, we're going to be like, what the hell is going on? Right? It's just more speculation running rampant, but it's only 10 days away. It'll be fine.
It seems like it's already been a long time since these spoilers have come out because I've had so many conversations staying up way past my bedtime conversing about what we're seeing as they're coming up in the weird different time zones. But that's what makes it fun. The speculation wrong 2 or 3 times about what I thought was going to happen. But it's been a fun ride, and I look forward to seeing the new cards that come out, and we'll re-speculate over and over and over again until we actually know what's going on.
Yeah. No, well said. Yeah, I think with that we'll go ahead and wrap up. I mean, Josh and I are going to be pumping out as many videos as we can. I mean, I generally like to do like an end week recap because they generally don't, or at least in the past, I don't know if that'll hold true, but in the past they haven't done a bunch of weekend spoilers. So trying to do like an end week kind of recap, that's probably what we'll try to do because neither one of us can crank out 2 videos a day to try and keep on top of this, right?
Right.
Nor should you, because how the heck are you? I mean, you're wrong instantaneously then, right? So
yeah, that's the amazing thing. Like it's only Tuesday,
right?
And we've already seen had so many conversations and been wrong and right, and moving forward, we've got at least 3 more days this week of cards that we haven't even seen yet. So definitely we'll need to do a recap and reevaluation.
Yep. Emotions have been low, emotions have been high, discussions have been had. So, all right, well,
yeah.
If you've been watching this and you're still at this point, thanks for joining us. Obviously, I want to thank LSS for the honor of this, as well as the nice present that they sent me. Josh, the Hexagore card is in the mail, so thank you for doing what you do here. I appreciate you and appreciate everybody who watches. Just wanted to remind everybody, if you haven't so Gone Guy's pre-orders are out, but if you haven't found an LGS with stock, you can get on board for the unlimited release. Gone Guy's where both of us get our sealed product from, and then our friend over at Fab Foundry, he's got the singles thing going on, so make sure to check him out. If you do buy from him, use the code below and we get a small kickback, which helps feed our addiction. So thanks again for joining us, guys. If you want to get involved in the conversation, pop in below. Again, if you're here for the first time, check out some of our other stuff. Give us those likes, those subs, those subscribes, and we'll be here every week. That's the goal. So you got anything to add before we get out of here, buddy?
No, thank you very much for the opportunity to go on this journey with you to spoil the card. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to be here. And hopefully, get to keep creating some nice content about it, getting you enjoy them.
Yep. Well, as long as my ranger's good. No, I'm just kidding. So, all right. Well, if nothing else, folks,
let's not let that be the criterion for.
Yeah. Well, if me being here was dependent on Ranger being good, it'd have been a sad year. So.
Right.
So anyway, thanks folks for joining us tonight. Again, thank you LSS, thank you Josh. If nothing else, folks, go Commando.
Go Commando.